Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Mackenzie Dern to steamroll Jessica Andrade. And you're going to have to give me a bit of forgiveness there because I forgot how things worked. I thought every fight starts on the ground. I thought that was like a known thing. And then I was watching the event and every fight was standing up in the beginning. You actually have to take the fight to the ground. I was like, what the fuck? But anyway, I'm here to recap UFC 295. I'm going to start at the top with Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka, and then work my way down to Jamal Emmers versus Denis Buzukja, which will be the main event of this video. Alex Pereira, man, this guy is a combat sports legend. He is a living fucking legend. You know, you can say he got short-tracked to both titles, but he is a world champion, a two-time world champion, something very few fighters have done. Increasingly, it's becoming a little more common, but it still puts him in the elite of the elite. And this guy, he will never be he will be a submission threat. I actually thought that guillotine could have given Jiri Prochazka trouble, but he will always be a one-dimensional fighter, so to speak, even though there's a lot more going on, underneath the surface there. But what he's done already in MMA is fantastic. This guy, if he is that limited, he should not have wins under any circumstances over Jiri Prochazka, Jan Blachowicz, even Sean Strickland. Although the way he fought, it was pretty inviting for an Alex Pereira victory. But regardless, Alex Pereira is a very dangerous guy, again, at any weight class. He's just such a deadly striker. And as Rogan was pointing out, it's not all just power, although power is certainly the difference maker often in his fights. But this guy has great composure. I mean, he's a natural fighter anyway, just as an MMA fighter, coming with all that kickboxing experience. Doesn't shy away from the bright lights and all that horse shit that could fuck with a fighter. But the guy is more than just a striker. He really is. He's not somebody that you can just chew up on the ground. And he's somebody that can chew you up on the feet, no matter who you are. Let me pull this down a little bit. Alex Pereira got a very impressive victory over Jiri Prochazka. It wasn't a bad stoppage. I'm so glad Jiri admitted that it wasn't bad, because Rogan and DC were all over that. I was defending Mark Goddard on my couch in my underwear going, that's bullshit. He didn't mean it. I don't know if I was saying he didn't mean it, but I was saying it wasn't that bad of a stoppage. I thought maybe he could have been given an extra beat, as John Anik said, but in the moment, I thought he was unconscious. I thought if you just studied his body language going for that takedown, there was a moment where he went limp, and Mark Goddard was very sure that he was stopping Alex Pereira from dropping a mounted elbow on an unconscious Jiri in the next nanosecond. So, good stoppage in my opinion. Great victory. Alex Pereira, wow, my nose is fucking huge. Alex Pereira is a two-time world champion and the best light heavyweight on the planet. And I'll tell you, I think the world of Jamal Hill, but that is a very tough fight, unless Alex Pereira has a shitty chin, which he proved in this fight and in the last fight to not be the case. It's something I speculated on before the fight. You know, he was knocked dead against Israel Adesanya, and now he's 36 and whatever, but he still seems very, very healthy and as dangerous as ever. Those calf kicks were the story of the fight until the Travis Brown elbows, but Pereira is just that fucking dangerous. And in a slow kickboxing bout, he's still dangerous. You can't relax with him. He's going to chew you up. And in a firefight, maybe that increases your chances of winning against him, especially if you're Jiri Prochazka maybe. But it also leaves you vulnerable, and you're going to be getting chewed up from Alex Pereira and getting finished, likely, if you want to exchange power with him. Great win. The guy becomes a legend. I think he already had an incredible career in his short UFC career before this fight, but now there's no doubt about it. He is a Hall of Famer. unless he fucking murders someone. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, and just I think the world of this guy. I can't wait, to see him fight Jamal Hill, every one of the light heavyweights. I'm an Alex Pereira guy, no doubt. Yuri Prohashka, this sucks. It was his first loss in almost 10 years, in 8 years or so, and it's another knockout loss, and it's another example of him having bad defense, in my opinion. He just has bad defense. His offense is so great and so potent that you can forget about the defense for 10 years or so, every now and then. But it will come back to rear its ugly head, and that's what happened in this fight. The guy is vulnerable coming in. He doesn't quite look like Mackenzie Dern, but he is not defensively sound, and Pereira clipped him some short, tight hooks, which were the beginning of the end, and then took him out with those elbows. Punches, and then once he transitioned to elbows, that's when he went unconscious. Great fucking victory for Pereira. And that brings me to Tom Aspinall. Speaking of great victories, holy shit. Tom Aspinall defeats Sergey Pavlovich for the second time. Well, hands Sergey Pavlovich his second loss, I should say. It's the second time Sergey was defeated, and the first time he was knocked out. Tom Aspinall, who I was a little concerned about, considering he obviously came in poor shape. Not poor shape, but you know what I mean, under poor circumstances. And his shape was a little bulkier. I just thought he's bulkier, slower, and that combined with the short notice means he's less likely to, have an advantage down the stretch. But really, as I said in the pre-fight video, I never thought this fight was going down any stretch. This was going to be finished pretty early, and that's what we got. Pavlovich did hit him with a shot. One good punch, I'm sure you saw it. And look, you'll hear me mention that next time. Tom Aspinall, I didn't like the way he took a shot from Sergey and Curtis Blades. And it sounds like speculative bullshit because that's what it is. Speculative bullshit. The guy's got one legitimate loss, and it's a heel hook to a guy with a lot more experience early in his career. And he was about to TKO the guy right before he got the finish. But essentially his record is perfect, damn close to it. And in the UFC, he is the man. He's the man. This fight was a fight that was never going to get the accolades that John Jones and Stipe would get, but it was kind of the battle for the future, and Tom Aspinall gets the future. Sergey Pavlovich, this guy is a fucking tank. I think he can knock out anybody, and I think he's a little not underrated on the ground, but difficult to take down in a Jessica Andrade sort of way, but here he showed a whole new vulnerability. I always thought he was hittable and hurtable, but seeing a guy go unconscious from two punches, really, but, one punch got the ball rolling, of course, and for that to happen in, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever that was, it's an eye-opening loss, obviously, potentially a pivotal loss, and yeah, guy's still a young, healthy fighter in his prime, theoretically, but he needs to take some time off and tighten up that defense, because Tom Aspinall clipped him, and I thought the difference was mobility. Sergey Pavlovich is a slow stalker, heavy shots because he's heavy on his feet. Tom Aspinall is light on his feet, and that brings the speed, and that was really the difference maker. And he closed the distance with his speed, hit him with a big shot right on the head, and then followed up with another shot right on the head before he went down and collapsed. Great fucking victory for Tom Aspinall. He is the third British champion, I think, or whatever, but the guy's definitely a star. I really like Tom Aspinall and Sergey Pavlovich. But yeah, I'm glad Tom Aspinall got the victory here, because I do think he is the more versatile fighter between the two. Sergey Pavlovich, I think, could be just one-way destruction. He could have been, and if he won this fight, it only would have reinforced that. He would have been just a dominant force that steamrolls all of his opponents in one round. I think there's a little more going on with Tom Aspinall, especially against John Jones. I think he presents the much more interesting challenge. But I don't think we're going to see that fight anyway, to be honest. Still, I think Tom Aspinall, once the smoke clears, he's just going to have that word interim erased, and he's just going to be the champion. And until he shows some serious vulnerabilities, not just taking a shot, not even poorly, but just eating a shot from his opponent, I'm not going to have doubt in him. Tom Aspinall, he's the fucking man. I shouldn't say I'm not going to have doubt in him. I might pick against him in his next fight. Depends on who he's fighting. It's fucking Cyril Gane. It's fucking interesting. But Tom Aspinall is, there's no reason to put anybody above him right now, even John Jones. I'd favor him to beat John Jones. I think Tom Aspinall has all the upside in the world, and this was a fantastic victory. Madison Square Garden, 1 minute knockout, 2 weeks notice, pulled his back or whatever, pulled a muscle in his back 2 weeks ago, after he took the fight, of course, and still made it happen. Made it happen in incredible fashion. It's a highlight reel for the ages, and a legacy-defining championship victory. That brings me to Mackenzie Dern versus Jessica Andrade, or Jessica Andrade versus Mackenzie Dern, I should say. Jessica Andrade was just a much better striker, and Mackenzie Dern's a girl that I thought could take it. I think I said some time ago, this girl is very durable. She's not the best striker, but she's very durable, and I still maintain that. I don't think she was knocked out here. I think she was just beaten up and beaten to the point of discouragement, where she was kind of praying for a knockdown so the ref would stop the fight, I think. And look, she threw down after getting knocked down a few times. She tried to make some shit happen, but she was just up against it technically against Jessica Andrade. Couldn't get through her striking guard, couldn't take the fight to the ground, take her out of her striking realm, and Jessica Andrade is way too powerful and way too comfortable. And that Mackenzie Dern clearly was not. She was uncomfortable, outclassed, and if I'm being honest, this is something Rogan expressed last night. It was a little embarrassing. I always think on behalf of the sport and the company and whatever the fuck, the UFC, but I think Mackenzie Dern looked so sloppy that it was embarrassing. That being the third fight from the top at MSG. And of course, she was favored to win. She should have won that fight just based on how they've looked lately. But Jessica Andrade reminded everybody, myself included, that there's more to this than momentum. And Mackenzie Dern was forced to fight a fight she did not want to fight. And much to my surprise, I expected if Andrade, I knew Andrade could win, but I thought even then it'd be a decision. Mackenzie getting tossed around a little bit and beaten up on the feet, but she just started getting chewed up, and after that first knockdown, it was pretty much over. She wasn't close to being unconscious or anything, but she was definitely in panic mode for the next few minutes straight, which only led to another 5 knockdowns or whatever. So shit loss for Mackenzie Dern, but that's not the way I should word it. I should say just another fantastic victory for Jessica Andrade. And as I said, I have a lot of faith in Mackenzie Dern's durability, so I think despite how shitty she looked on the feet, as a finish stoppage, this is a great notch for Jessica Andrade. It's not going to rank up there with the Amanda Lemos arm triangle choke or the Rose Namajunas slam to win the championship, of course, and whatever else. Andrade has plenty of great victories, knocking out Karolina Kowalkiewicz, but getting this win, a knockout or maybe a TKO over Mackenzie Dern, it's going to age well because Mackenzie's not done. I don't think Mackenzie will ever be that great on the feet, but she has something going for her. I mean, she's shown it throughout her career. She's she's got that heavy-handed, big-ass power, and here she was limited and reduced to looking like a sloppy amateur because Jessica Andrade is that difficult to wrangle and that powerful on the feet. So a shit loss for Dern, but great fucking win for Andrade. I feel like I said that 16 times already. Let me move on to the next fight. Benoit Saint-Denis knocks out Matt Frevola. This was kind of how I expected it to go, although I thought Matt Frevola getting Benoit Saint-Denis down, slamming him, was impressive. Right when that happened, I thought, this could be Frevola via decision. Because Matt Frevola, once he gets into his groove, he's got a relentless gas tank, and he is, first and foremost, a grappler. A wrestler, grappler, a cardio machine. That's more who he is. It's just he's got 3 consecutive knockout wins coming into this fight. So he started to be looked at in a different light. And maybe he looked at himself in a different light. But he has always been vulnerable on the feet. You know, half his losses are knockout losses. And here he was fighting a bigger, stronger guy in Benoit Saint-Denis, a guy who is underrated on the feet. He's got 3 TKO victories, all in round 2. And now he's got his first round knockout, and it's a head kick over Matt Frevola. Benoit Saint-Denis, his striking has really come along. This guy is a problem everywhere. I think he can hang with the best in the division. I think Frevola could too, generally, if there were no knockouts. I really like Frevola, but Benoit Saint-Denis, he's got the power. He's also got the chin. I trust his durability, again, after that first loss to Zaleski up at welterweight, with all these other shitty circumstances around that fight. And Benoit Saint-Denis, not only did he quit, but he didn't physically break either. And here he's physically broken, 5 people in a row. And this was the most impressive. A nice head kick over Matt Frevola. Benoit Saint-Denis, this guy could be fighting for not a title next, but a main event. And that would be awesome for me. Benoit Saint-Denis, I think the world of him. And Matt Frevola, I really like the guy. This was a tough loss, but yeah, he's got to protect himself, because the guy, he's got to have no faith in his chin at this point. I know I don't. Speaking of which, there's another guy with a bad chin. His name is Pat Sabatini. He's been TKO'd from Damon Jackson. That's really his only TKO loss. The other one was an injury, but he was also knocked down early against Jamal Emmers. And he's just much more of a grappler with a weakness on the feet. And here Diego Lopes proved it, steamrolling him pretty much. Pat Sabatini looked like he was finding his groove on the feet, but whatever. The fight was still over within a minute. There was no groove to be found. Diego Lopes charged him. Well, first he hit him and staggered him a little bit, and then he charged him as Pat Sabatini was staggering away, and Diego Lopes just pounced on him. Ended up, luckily, I think, pinning one of his arms and pounded the shit out of him unconscious. Diego Lopes, this guy will always be known as a grappler because he is such an exciting grappler and particularly dangerous off his back, but he's still more of a knockout threat, certainly, than somebody like Pat Sabatini. As I mentioned in the pre-fight video, he had, I think, 8 TKOs coming into this fight, and now he gets his 9th and lets everybody know he's dangerous as fuck at the UFC level. I love Diego Lopes. Pat Sabatini, too, although he's not nearly as exciting of a fighter. And I'm happy the much more exciting fighter won, despite losing money on the fight. Diego Lopes, he's a guy that I think matches up well with anybody. I mean, that debut against Movsar Evloev, that's the ultimate neutralizer in the division, and he was not neutralized on short notice. So Diego Lopes moves up a few notches with this win, and he's a guy that I feel like, you can put him in a main event in his next fight, and I wouldn't scoff at it. I think the guy's got so much upside, and he is must-see television. So he keeps that going, and for Pat Sabatini, this is a significant notch against his durability. Speaking of durability, I'm here to talk about Steve Erceg versus Alessandro Costa. Steve Erceg, he showed his durability in round 2. He fought to survive there and kept himself safe, really, and alive. But Steve Erceg was the cleaner fighter. I thought this was a technical battle in round 1, and Steve Erceg fought the fight I expected him to fight. Got a clean knockdown at the end and secured the round. And then in round 2, Alessandro Costa really surprised me, showing a lot of grit and made shit happen. made shit happen. I think that's where he had a good submission attempt, although that could have been in round one. But also, he hurt him. Alessandro Costa proved to be dangerous and still quite energetic for a guy that I expected to be slowing down, especially after getting dropped by the more technical fighter. And if the technical fighter won round one, I thought for sure he'd be winning rounds 2 and 3. And instead, Costa battled back and gave him hell in round 2 and made it a very interesting fight. But in the end, Steve Erceg showed that composure, kept himself safe in round 3 because I thought Costa still had potential to find a big moment. And he did not. And Steve Erceg out-hustled him. Slowed him down with some grappling as well. Wasn't able to go through him with the grappling, but, hugging against the cage could be the difference maker. And I thought Steve Erceg was the fresher man in round 3 and showed to be a very complete, well-rounded fighter and the more composed fighter. And he ended up taming the youngster, the wild man, and again, technique prevailed. And Steve Erceg now 2-0 in the UFC. His first win was better, I guess, on paper, but still two very solid victories for Steve Erceg. He doesn't seem like he's the most imposing guy, Steve Erceg, even though he's got some knockdowns, one in each fight. But, not being so imposing could leave room for your opponent to impose himself on you. But still, Steve Erceg's got every other trait going for him. And he's able to find 2 big victories in his first 2 UFC fights. Can't wait to see the guy fight again. And I think when he gets a finish in the UFC, it's going to be very pretty. That brings me to Loopy Godinez versus Tabitha Ricci. This was a very close fight, but I thought Loopy definitely won it. And I also think there was... I want to rewatch the knockdowns. I know they each exchanged knockdowns in round 1. Tabitha Ricci caught her at the very end, which could have given her the round, but I still thought Loopy won the small battles, and then you give them a knockdown each. I thought Loopy won round 1. Round 2, Tabitha Ricci caught her again at the end of the round, and I don't know exactly what that looked like. I think it wasn't the cleanest knockdown. She ran into her shoulder or something, but still, Ricci definitely had some moments, but in general, I thought she was out-hustled and outstruck, even though her opponent had a bloody mess of a face and she did not. But Tabitha Ricci on the back foot proved to be a very formidable striker. There was no grappling here, although Tabitha Ricci attempted plenty of takedowns. I thought Loopy Godinez's wrestling would be the difference in putting Tabitha Ricci on her back, but she kept the fight standing, because, which was wise in the end, because I did think she won the striking battle, even though she could have lost a decision with some horse shit. And I don't know what was going on with the scorecard there. I feel like Bruce Buffer was arguing about the 30-27 or something. But either way, despite horse shit and whatever controversy and a little hiccup, the decision went the right way, because Loopy Godinez did outwork Tabitha Ricci. It was still a very close fight, but pressure and volume, and I don't even know the fucking numbers, but I know what I saw, and Loopy Godinez did get the better of her overall. And there were some deceptively big moments again. I don't know what that knockdown was in round 2, and even the ones in round 1 where they each got a knockdown. There was no gigantic moment where one fighter was halfway out or anything. But still, a fight where they each had big moments. I thought it comes down to who got the better of whom overall, and Loopy Godinez was winning the small moments. I thought the decision went the right way, but Tabitha Ricci fared very well here. My estimation of her as a fighter doesn't really go anywhere, but for Loopy Godinez, this was a big win, securing her 4th win, they said, in a calendar year, whatever the fuck that means. I think it just means 12 months, starting whenever the fuck. But great win for Loopy Godinez, and she's got a lot of momentum going here now. That brings me to Mateusz Rebecki versus Roosevelt Roberts, and Rebecki steamrolled him, or Roundbesky steamrolled him. Roosevelt Roberts took this fight on very short notice. He was the biggest underdog, and would have given it a good go, I'm sure, if he was able to, but he just never was able to. Rebecki just took the fight to him, cracked him a few times, ripped him to the mat, secured position, had great back control, and then ended up going for an armbar from the back and securing it after a little bit of a battle. It was pretty similar to the Jim Miller victory, even though Jim was advancing to mount as opposed to taking his back before the armbar, but the armbar was still very similar. Roosevelt Roberts, he's got skinny arms, and that doesn't make for the best armbar defense. And for Rebecki, this guy, he's already got beautiful finishes, an armbar and TKO in the UFC, and a nice grindy decision. This guy, man, I want to see some vulnerabilities. I really want to see him tested. And he's going to need some good matchups here. He's not the most high-profile guy, doesn't have the longest storied UFC career, but he's already shown to be a well-rounded beast. And I think he's got some high-level fights coming his way. And for Roosevelt Roberts, he took this fight on very short notice, gave it a go, but he was never supposed to win it. Sucks that he lost the way he did, but hey, assuming his arm is healthy, that means he's healthy, because he didn't get knocked out, and maybe he'll be back soon. Did the UFC a favor, so he deserves it. Slava versus Nazim Sadikov. This was a fucking war. A true war. Slava I thought looked awesome. I actually thought it was a dominant performance for Slava aside from the dominant shit going the other way in round 2, where Nazim Sadikov head kicked him, had him on Queer Street, and almost pounded him out. I mean, that was an ass kicking that Slava took in round 2. I was really impressed that he survived it, and I was a little disappointed in Nazim, even though I bet on Slava so I guess I wasn't too disappointed. But as just a general fight fan and a Serra-Longo fan, I thought Nazim Sadikov did display some shittier instincts in that fight. And look, in round 3, I think he was better off taking him to the ground. In round 2, after he hurt him, in the immediate aftermath, he was not supposed to take him to the ground. It's like a baby. When a baby crying, you just got to hold him tight. And that's what he did to Slava Instead of letting him panic on the feet, he took him to the ground where he found his composure, kept him nice and tight, let him wrap his legs around him, and he got his wherewithal, got his bearings back. And Slava then retook the fight, I thought. I thought he was dominant largely in round 3. Nazim Sadikov, he's tough as fuck. I think that's an underrated aspect of this fight. Slava is not as imposing. I think Nazim Sadikov is more powerful, but Slava is such a good striker. His striking placement is better than his speed, and he was working Nazim throughout the majority of that fight, and Sadikov was able to stand tall. He didn't really ever get hurt too badly, although in round 3 in the beginning, I thought he might have been a little hurt. But anyway, the fight goes to a draw, which I thought was the only reasonable scorecard. Round 2 was definitely a 10-8 round, and rounds 1 and 3 were definitely Slava rounds. I think Slava needs to keep himself safe, obviously, because that's what cost him this victory. But other than that, he showed a lot of great traits as a fighter, and kept himself from losing in that respect. Great fucking fight. That was fight of the night, and it was a true war. Next up, we've got Jared Gordon knocking out Marco Madsen. Jared Gordon, he's a guy that has never been the most imposing fighter himself, the most imposing striker. He's not the most powerful guy. He's a guy generally that tames his opponent and outworks him down the stretch. And here he kind of did tame his opponent and finish him a little later, but it was still a round 1 finish, which was a gigantic surprise to me. Marco Madsen was working Jared Gordon early on. I think he was definitely getting the better of the clinch exchanges. very heavy on the head and pounding the shit out of him and kneeing him to the body and all that. But I didn't think it was quite as effective or as dominant as the commentators were making it out to be. Especially after like the third clinch exchange or whatever. I thought Jared Gordon really started working very well. And he was hitting Marco Madsen with some nice body shots that could have been the difference maker in the end, for all we know. You'd have to ask Marco Madsen. But he slowed him down, and then I thought he took over the fight in the final 30 seconds or whatever preceding the knockout. And then, even though I thought he took over the fight, I still didn't expect him to get a finish like that in round one. But it just took a few seconds, and he cracked Marco Madsen behind the head or whatever, side of the head or whatever. But he hit him, and that was it. Marco Madsen crumbled. Jared Gordon got a great victory here. I don't know if I wouldn't call it a comeback victory because whatever, it all happened inside of one round. But it was definitely a difficult matchup with an Olympian wrestler who can rough you up in the clinch, just with his wrestling. And that's what he was doing there. Jared Gordon was really being worked over early on, kept himself safe, kept himself composed, started to turn the tides, and then very quickly secured a finish. Great MSG moment for Jared Gordon. He is a local fighter. And for Marco Madsen, this was a pivotal loss, I think. I didn't quite feel that way about the Grant Dawson loss. Round 3, strong strangulation is different than getting knocked out, especially as a 39-year-old. I don't think there are too many guys that can do to Marco Madsen what Grant Dawson did, but I think there are a lot more guys that can do to him what Jared Gordon did, and now it's a possibility. So this was a pivotal loss for a 39-year-old Marco Madsen, and yeah, great win for Jared Gordon. Speaking of which, John Castaneda gets a great win over Kwang Ho Kang in a fight that I got completely wrong. I think I just got it completely wrong. I expected Kwang Ho Kang to win the exact fight John Castaneda did. John Castaneda, not that I expected him to dominate. I thought it would be a close fight, to be honest, but this went the other way, and it wasn't so close. Kwang Ho Kang was safe, and he's an experienced fighter, very composed, but he was outgunned here, technically, by John Castaneda, and I mean everywhere. John Castaneda is a very well-rounded fighter, and he's a guy who has historically had a great gas tank, again, aside from that Daniel Santos loss. And here he showed everything. He wasn't able to get a finish or anything. Kwang Ho Kang's a very difficult guy to finish. Again, he's only got 2 finish losses, and they're both like 15 years ago. But Castaneda proved to be a very formidable opponent on a technical level, a superior opponent. And I thought he was pressuring Kwang Ho Kang very well on the feet. Could have just won a kickboxing battle, I thought. But he mixed in some wrestling as well. And I thought that would be the difference maker. I thought it'd be a close fight on the feet. But Kwang Ho Kang would keep himself safe, maybe make some shit happen at range, and hit some takedowns. And instead it was Castaneda in his face and hitting those takedowns. And he got a dominant victory over a UFC veteran. I really like John Castaneda. I have since he beat Miles Johns. And I was really impressed with this fucking performance here. That brings me to Joshua Van versus Kevin Borjas. Another impressive victory. Joshua Van, he is the much more composed fighter between the two. Although, like I said in the pre-fight, I thought Kevin Borjas was dangerous. And Joshua Van took away his danger and slowed him down and just won a clear decision. I thought he just got better and better and more dominant as the fight went on. And the majority of the fight was him stalking Kevin Borjas. Ripped him to the mat too as well. But he was stalking him on the feet. He wasn't afraid of his power. And he was too much for him. I think Kevin Borjas on his back foot, he knew he was shit out of luck there against a guy like Joshua Van. Joshua Van is very young. Both guys are young, but Van, I think, is particularly young. And he looks like a very composed fighter. Like I said, beating Zhalga Zhumagulov by decision the way he did, losing round 1 and then winning rounds 2 and 3. That impressed the fuck out of me. This a little less so, but still a similar victory for Joshua Van. And Yeah, so as of now, the sky's the limit. And that brings me to Jamal Emmers getting a nice knockout victory over Denis Buzukja. This one was one that I was sure would go the distance. I thought Jamal Emmers was a little more vulnerable, just on the feet. And he's the guy that's got more finish losses, of course, having fought such great competition. But that was a part of it. Jamal Emmers was just better. He was a few levels above Denis Buzukja, and sat him down with a right hand pretty quickly in like a minute or whatever, under a minute, and that was it. And then he pounded him out. But one right hand got him down. Jamal Emmers will never be known as the big overhand right guy. He's much more effective utilizing his straight punches and straight attacks. But Jamal Emmers is a big enough, strong enough guy, and he's been fighting for a long time. And he showed Denis Buzukja he can get it done even on level 1, just cracking you. And he cracked him, found that hole pretty quickly, and got a victory. Jamal Emmers looked awesome there. He's a guy that I've always said has been underrated, and he will be underrated in the future, certainly after that Jack Jenkins bullshit decision. But there's no underrating this. Just a 1-minute knockout. Great win for Jamal Emmers, and assuming his hand is healthy, I can't wait to see him back in there. That guy's a guy that can give a lot of great fighters a lot of trouble. Again, I'll go back to his Giga Chikadze fight when he figured out he could strike with him and found some faith in himself. He was striking with him. Jamal Emmers, if his health holds up, he had that bad loss to Pat Sabatini, the heel hook a few years ago, which took him out of commission. But if he's healthy, he is a well-versed, dangerous guy in his prime right now, 34 years old or whatever he is. So great fucking win for him. Overall, this was an excellent event, as all MSG events are. But here we had 5 main card fights, as we always do, and all 5 of them ended knockout. All 5 of them. Knockout or TKO. Really all knockouts, aside from Andrade, in my opinion. That was a TKO, but we still got to see like 6 knockdowns in that fight. So it was just an incredible main card. I love submissions, maybe even more than knockouts, but I'm not going to complain when I see 5 knockouts. Just an amazing card, such good fights, and this one will go down as one of the better events in UFC history. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.